Greetings. Greetings. Hello out there. Hello. Greetings. Welcome to Conversation with Tony Mobley. This is episode 6 of 2025 of Conversation with Tony Mobley. And tonight, I am having a conversation with 5 amazing educators. Hello out there. Hello. Greetings. This is episode 6 again at 2025. And I want to thank everyone for being a part of Conversations with Tony Mobley. Okay. We are getting a little bit of feedback. And I want to thank everyone for being a part of Conversations with Tony Mobley. Okay. We are getting a little bit of feedback. Apologies to everyone.
Hey, Tony, you want us to introduce ourselves while you're figuring that out?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
All right, I'm throwing it to Dr. Clark first. The elder of the tribe.
It is true. I'm elder. My name is Chris Clark. I'm in Tempe, Arizona. Spent my second or third career in higher education. So that's where I know the most, but most of that time I was doing research on teaching and with teachers, with classroom teachers. So they've taught me so much. Happy to be here. Corissa, who are you?
My name is Carissa Worthy. I am not a teacher anymore. I'm with the assessment department in Fulton County. I support 2 zones with anything that has to do with assessment. I'm primarily elementary K-5.
Shontelle?
Throw the ball to somebody else, Corissa.
Looks like Shontelle was throwing the ball.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. I am Shontelle Jackson. I am currently a teacher, special education K-5 teacher in South Carolina.
And hi, I'm John. I am in the corporate training space currently. I am passionate about changing how we view training and education from an event to a process and making sure we're using evidence-based practices to make it effective. Right now, and for the last 10 years, it's been in the healthcare space, but it was also previously in religious instruction as a youth pastor.
And I'm David, and I'm just a big fan of Tony Mobley.
Okay, thank you all so much. We're going to get right into it. I just want to say thank you to all of you for being here with me this evening. This is actually part 3 of an educational conversation that we've been having the first part of this year. And this is an opportunity for you to ask questions. We have Mukana, which is a question system that was provided by Alex Lindsay in 090. So we ask that you use that. Also, you can put your questions in the YouTube chat, and we will try to answer your questions there. And so we're going to really sort of get right into it because there are a lot of us tonight. And so the very first question is going to be, again, who are you? Dr. Clark, Ms. Shontelle Jackson, Rabbi David Paskin, Mr. John Snyder, and Ms.Corissa Worthy. For those who have not had an opportunity to watch episodes 1 and 2, we're just going to ask you to briefly give us what you are currently doing in education, and then we're going to get right into some of the other questions. I know you guys have given your name, but a little bit more detail, but not a lot, and then we're going to get into the questions. So we're going to start with John. Just a little bit more about maybe anything that has changed since the last time you were on.
Sure. Yeah, I was previously last time I was at a local regional hospital here in Northern Nevada. Since then, I've joined a startup company that will be building out call centers for hospitals across the United States. And so I'm building out and designing our training, workforce management, quality management, knowledge management teams with a big emphasis on the training team.
Fantastic. Shontelle?
Not much has changed since the last time I was here, but I am currently a self-contained special education teacher in Aiken, South Carolina.
Fantastic. Carissa?
So, nothing has changed for me either, but I am with Fulton County. I support two zones, in Fulton County, zones 3 and 7, as their assessment program specialist. So basically, it's 18 schools that I support, elementary schools. And so basically anything that has to do with assessment, whether it be district or state assessment, I support them. I also go in and help with, not only just the assessment, with the data piece as well.
Okay. David?
I do lots of education, but the big thing right now in my life is that I am launching a brand new school next fall called the Snyder Learning Lab, which is a micro school that is inspired by Montessori, Reggio, and Acton academies. And we're putting our own unique spin on it, and I'm really, really excited about it because I have tours every day, and I'm learning so much, and it's just fantastic.
Dr. Clark?
Well, it's been 2 or 3 weeks since last we talked, and the only change that I'm aware of is that I've started to learn how to cook. After 80 years of being served by first my mother, and then my wife, and then the Navy, and then my wife again. And now I'm learning how to cook. So I could be on the cooking channel next week.
All right. All right. Thank you all so much. The first question is, what are your thoughts on support for special education in terms of IEPs and those kinds of things that support special education students? And as you were thinking about those thoughts, I just want to share something briefly with me. I've worked with Atlanta Public Schools probably now 15 years ago, and one of my assignments was I worked at the Marcus Center, and I started out as a one-on-one para, working with a student at the Marcus Institute, I guess now. And one of the experiences I had was he had, and I guess I can say this since I'm no longer employed by Atlanta Public Schools, is that he was placed in the Marcus Center as a result of a lawsuit that he was not getting what was required as far as the IEP was concerned. And so he was sent to the Marcus Center. And at the Marcus Center, he had to have a college-educated paraprofessional to work with him. That was one of the stipulations. And so he ended up, when I became a teacher, he ended up actually becoming one of my students. But one of the things that was very interesting to me in that the Marcus Institute, the Marcus Center, was extremely responsive to the IEP as far as what we could do and what we couldn't do. And it was a very uplifting learning experience for me from the standpoint of there was a lot of engagement with the parents, the lawyers, all of the support systems that were in place. And it made for, I think, a very uplifting and powerful learning experience for this young man. And I want to say that because I had that experience, it also helped me with the work I had to do with him in the classroom. And so we're gonna talk to. I know Shontelle and Corissa have both worked as special education teachers at some point or another. So I'm gonna start with them as far as the IEPs and what you think. We're gonna start with Corissa and then we'll go to Shontelle.
So I worked as an IEP teacher, or not having students with special needs. It was only 2 years, but I have had experience with multiple grades within those 2 years. And I would say the biggest thing is knowing that what is in the IEP, knowing those laws so that you are making sure that you adhere to those laws. Making sure that IEP teams are happening, the team is meeting regularly and that you're having those meetings as you should. And also, I would say communication with parents is important to kind of bridge that gap of what's happening in school and what's happening at home to kind of help provide that stability with students so that they are able to meet their goals. So I would say those are some of the important things that I took away when I was teaching students with special needs. So being very, very, like I said, knowledgeable of what is in that IEP so that you can support those students.
Thank you, Shontelle.
Okay, so I get to the joy and pleasure of doing this for 17, 18 something ish years. It's been almost 20 years. So my experience with IEP is very in-depth. I create them. So my goal, though, as part of that team, is to remind each one of those team members that it is a team decision, not a special education expert decision. Just because I'm the special education teacher sitting at the table does not mean that I'm the only person with all of the special education IEP 504 knowledge. It takes the team, and we can feed on each other's expertise as far as the general education teacher, the LEA, and all the other supported related services are concerned. So I think in my position, whether it's in self-contained or when I was helping teachers out, like Corissa was talking about, where she had the special education students in her class, I would be her first line of support as her special education teacher. But I think it's important for me as the teacher to ensure that the general education teachers and anyone else, down to up to the custodians, the front office staff, understands and knows that, though, especially kids with big behaviors, I like to call them big behaviors, that everybody knows what's going on and what's in that kid's IEP so that we all are on the same page and we don't put ourselves in some legal bind.
Okay. Rabbi David Paskin, you are starting a new school, and I wanted to ask, you may not have students that are low functioning in your school, but I'm wondering, do you have a program for students that might be gifted?
So it's a really interesting question. Here's what I would say, and I'm not nearly as knowledgeable or skilled as the other educators that have spoken, but what I'll say is that I sort of don't buy into the whole idea that some children have special needs and that some children are advanced or can excel. I sort of believe instead that every child has special needs. In fact, every person does, and every person can be advanced and excel. Just because I may not be skilled in math doesn't mean that I can't, make a mean grilled cheese or do an amazing science project or tell a fantastic story. And so I don't know if I'm not really concerned with whether I have children who are advanced or behind. I care about three things. Number one, are they curious? Because I think that real learning comes from curiosity. Number two, are they connected? How do they work with other children? How do they react and integrate with the teacher? And third, are they courageous? Are they willing to take risks, to try new things, to fall down, to make mistakes, to ask questions? If you're curious, connected, and courageous, I don't care how much knowledge you have. Let's go learn something.
Okay. Dr. Clark, is there something you want to add to this conversation?
Sure, always. Start the stopwatch so I don't go on too long. I was really taken with Shontelle's emphasis on the idea that an IEP is a team sport. It's not something that's drawn up by the school psychologist or the head of the special ed department, and everybody else just rubber stamps it. And the parent is involved, right? The parent is a member of that team, and a very knowledgeable member of that team, knows the student or the child differently and more deeply than any of the professionals that fill out the other chairs at the table. So I think one of the biggest challenges is how to gracefully and respectfully include the parent as a regular continuing member of the team. And the big idea is support for the learning and the social integration of the student who is the subject of the IEP. It's basically, an IEP, as I understand it, is about additional support that is intended to move the child toward the learning goals that have been agreed upon by everybody on the team. They've been agreed upon as reasonable, possible, attainable, and in a way, it's a commitment by everybody in that circle to contribute to the success of the student who's subject of the IEP. Another important point is that an IEP should be dynamic. It's a living document. It's not just a 2-hour meeting followed by a year of crossing your fingers and hoping that things will be okay the next time we meet. I'm not sure legislatively how often an IEP has to be revisited, whether that's once a year or, this once a year. Shontelle is nodding her head. Mm-hmm. That may or may not be often enough with some kids. It may be that we need to revise and adjust, fine tune it, or mid-course correct it, because children don't develop 1 year at a time. They develop in a sawtooth manner. Some weeks and months they're doing wonderfully, and other times they have a big setback, and they surprise us all the time. So my pitch to people who are involved in growing up and supporting an IEP is meet with your teammates more than once a year. Doesn't have to be everybody on the team, but it should certainly include the mother or the parent who's involved, and one or two of the teachers and other professionals who are involved to, maybe do better than what the IEP goals were. It's legal to do better than what you could imagine might be achievable. So don't dumb down the goals, make them reasonable, but then push yourselves to exceed those goals if it's at all possible. That's what I had to add.
Thank you, sir. John, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'm a parent with 2 kids on IEPs, and I'm kind of torn with the IEP process. It's a tool that can be used effectively, and it's a tool that can be really used ineffectively. And for parents, a lot of times it's just a extra pile of work that we feel like we're given. And a lot of our energy is spent trying to have people follow through and enforce IEPs. I think people are generally well-intentioned when they create plans for specific kids, but like one of my kids should have a full-time aide in the classroom with him one-to-one. It's easy to say that you should do something. It's a lot harder to staff that with a minimum wage position with no benefits, especially as hours get cut and as a result, benefits get cut too. And so we've constantly struggled with doing what everyone agrees is right for our kid. And so it feels like an extra job to do. And then we've had some bad teachers who, well, I wouldn't say they're bad teachers, but teachers who struggle with the IEP and they just give you a really generic list of accomplishments that, you know, you can request an extra IEP throughout the year if you want. But for parents with special needs, your life is exhausted and it's just like, do I have the energy to do this? Do I have the desire to do this? Or am I just going to let it happen and hope that next year things get better? So I think it's a tool that's designed with good intentions and has become basically a way to prevent lawsuits. And as a result, it incentivizes some people to give the minimum effort in a way that doesn't necessarily help the kids. But I think there's really, really great teachers in this special education system too, who really take it to heart and try to partner. So it's, you know, depends a lot on the teacher, the family, the situation. And I'm come from a family that can afford to have a parent stay at home full time. And we still struggle with our energy levels, our mental health, and all sorts of things. I can't imagine what it's like for someone from lower income who can't even keep, you know, their bills paid and food on the table, and then they're being asked to show up and help support their kids' education. So it's tough.
Absolutely. And Shontelle, I want to make sure that I'm not making an error. If there is a need to have an IEP meeting prior to the year, can anyone on the team make that recommendation?
Anyone on the team can make that recommendation. The team can make the recommendation at the annual review and say, hey, these are the goals we have right now, but team, let's come back and meet in 6 to 8 weeks or 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what the goals are. Because sometimes when you're talking about the specific skills, it could be academic skills, behavioral skills, SEL skills. Because at the end of the day, the IEP, as Chris said, it's a dynamic document and it's for a dynamic individual student. So we always have to be on the grind, basically, reconstructing it, backing up and punting. That was working, but it's not working anymore. Let's try something different. And yes, the team can meet. The team can meet either formally or informally, just as long as it's documented appropriately. Sort of like John said, we still we've both worked in school systems where I'm ready to sue you for whatever, whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. So we still have to cover ourselves logistically or legally to ensure that we don't put ourselves in those situations. So a lot of times you'll find teachers and I'll say other special education teachers who are just like, okay, well, we'll just meet again in a year. But I'd also have worked closely with teachers like me who are like, oh no, we're going to meet in 6 to 8 weeks because we need to see how this goal is working. Because if we don't put it on, sometimes if you don't put the team's feet to the fire, so to speak, and require them to be there, it doesn't, the balls do fall because of good intention or not good intention. It really doesn't matter. I agree 100% with John. We're sitting at that table. Everybody sitting around the table has the best intentions for our kids, but it looks great in black and white. But when it gets into the real live, 3D color, it's hard to do when you have one special education teacher for 600 kids.
Yeah, and with that, I would also add like it's the other challenging thing is parents are told that they should make a stink, and that's how they get things done, which doesn't help the teachers at all. So it's not there's no one side that's the problem here. It's a definitely a system that can quickly become conflict instead of something that helps the kid.
Because I mean, I'm guilty of it before. I've told parents, hey, you might need to say this instead of me. But I also feel like it's important, or my place as well, to help support parents in knowing your rights so that you can make those. You may not have to make a stink, but just make those statements, those firm statements to say, these are my rights and I know them. So that just kind of triggers somebody to sit at the table and do the right things.
Thank you all so much for that. Our next question, only before we go to our next question, I just want to say it's important to those who are listening be an advocate for your child, for your student, and don't be afraid to reach out to people in your community to ask for support for your child. And I just wanted to make sure that was stated. Our next question is really for Rabbi David Paskin, and it's about your new school. So we're going to ask him about his new school, and I'm going to ask all of you, other than Rabbi David, to give your comments after he finishes on what things you might think of during this time to support
Wait,
him.
that's not fair. I didn't know this was a ruthless review of my program. Holy moly!
Well, we want to help you, and so we want to see if we can help. I'm going to tell you that prior to you coming on tonight, we were talking prior to our conversation tonight, and I was talking to Dr. Clark, and I was just telling him, just the idea of starting a school in 2025, I think is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's needed. I think knowing you, and I know that there is a component to you that thinks outside of the box. So I'm excited for you in terms of what this school is going to become. And so anything that you want to share, and we're going to ask the other panelists to just, encourage you if they don't have anything
Yeah, no,
to add.
I'd really love to hear what everyone has to say. So, I'll share one other piece of. So I already shared with you our mission, the three guiding North Star principles: curiosity, connection, and courage. Like I said, curiosity, we believe that real learning comes from curiosity. Connection to one another, because collaboration and teamwork is a fundamental skill. And also, we believe that children deserve to see the connection between what they're learning and their real lives. No more of this, what do I have to do this for? I'm never going to use this. Like, they deserve to know why they're going to use it. And finally, that courage piece, right? We want kids to fail all the time so they can learn to get back up and iterate. The way that we're thinking about the educational process itself is like climbing a mountain. So there are 4 steps to our learning process. The first is base camp. Base camp is where you pack your bag with all the skills and the content and the stuff that you're going to need for this journey that you're about to go on. Traditional schools do pretty well. They spend most of their time in base camp. Unfortunately, they spend a little too much time packing content, not as much time as we'd like packing skills. So we're going to focus on skill acquisition during this base camp time. The next part is practice. And this is before you actually climb the mountain, you got to practice. You got to go on the bunny hill, right? Where it's safe, the teacher's right by your side, everything's going to be okay. But you're putting those skills to work. So these 2 pieces, base camp and practice, that's where traditional education lives, we think. The problem is the kids never climb the damn mountain. They never climb the mountain. Like, the whole point is to climb the mountain, and they're not climbing the mountain. So our plan is every morning, base camp and practice. That's what we do every single morning. Every afternoon, we have expeditions. We actually climb mountains. And the example that I give everyone else is not going to make a whole heck of a lot of sense here, but I'll try it anyway. So in a temple, there's a light that hangs at the front. It's called the eternal light. And it's always on. It's like always on. So about 2 months ago, I was in our sanctuary with our kindergartners, and one of the kids looked up and saw it was out. The eternal light wasn't on. And my first thought was, wow, that's fantastic. Like, what an amazing opportunity to learn. So what if we said to the kids, all right, guys, you're challenged, because what we do is challenge-based learning, not problem-based learning, because problem means there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong with this. It's a challenge. The challenge is create an eternal light, a light that can stay on forever, or for as long as you're alive. So now all of a sudden, children have to know, well, how does light work? How does a circuit work? What kind of bulbs would I want to use? Fluorescent bulbs, LED bulbs? What are the economics of this? Which bulb would be more efficient economically? And how do I budget for this? How am I going to pay for the electricity? Does an eternal light need a light switch? Right? So they do all of this work in teams. Then instead of using Play-Doh, we actually go to Home Depot, we actually buy the stuff, and they literally build a light that works according to their specifications. And then rather than the teacher grading it, we have community showcases where all the different teams put out their work. And we have a group of lab luminaries. So it's called the Snyder Learning Lab. So these are our lab luminaries. And these are professionals from the community. So far, we have a judge, a circuit court judge. We have a member of the clergy. We have a firefighter paramedic. We have an entrepreneur. We have an engineer. And we have an electrician. So for this type of a project, the electrician comes and he gives feedback on the work that they did. Real person, real life, real learning. And then the last piece of this puzzle is reflection. And that is not what did I learn, but how did I learn, right? Like, did I work well in this group? How did I do on the iPad today when I was working on whatever, IXL or Khan Academy Kids or whatever it is? How did I do working with these people? Did I make enough time for this? Reflecting on how we learned. So this is what we're imagining for our learning lab. These four pieces, and really the two differentiators, I think, from traditional learning is, number one, focusing on skill mastery. There are no grades, there's no kindergarten, first grade, second grade in our program. You are who you are, and these are the skills that you're working on. And you push you forward, and we push you as far as we can. And you push you as far as you can. I don't care what grade you're in. We push, and you keep acquiring those skills, mastering those skills, and you don't move on until you do. And then we take all of that work and we actually put it into real life. We go on real expeditions. We really change our world. So that's the model that we're building together.
Wow. Amazing. Before I let everyone else talk, so no grades. So how do you move to the next level? Like,
yeah,
if you were to use grades, K through 5,
right,
or middle school, or
so look, eventually children are going to leave us. We don't get to keep them forever. And so we're not naive. We understand that we have to have systems in place to be able to gauge where children are. Also, because here in Florida, Florida loves giving private schools money for some reason. I don't really understand why. But in order to receive that money, we have to do state testing. So we will be doing tests for our kids. We just won't be telling the kids that we're doing tests. They'll just show up one day and, hey guys, special day, we're doing a test, and then ice cream. So we will be assessing the children, though. Assessment is absolutely fundamental to this kind of work, to any skill, to any mastery-based program. You have to be able to know when has the child mastered this skill? When have they mastered this skill, not on its own only, but also in conjunction with other skills? And when are we able to push them forward? So all the tools that we use, Khan Academy Kids, Splash Learn, Synthesis.com, all of the Montessori tools that we may be bringing in addition to all the work that our teachers are going to have to do in doing the data tracking for the kids, is really going to be just absolutely fundamental. I actually just spoke today, connected today with an organization called Mastery Track. I can't remember. It's Mastery Track is is this what it is? Is it Mastery Track or is it something else? No, it's not Mastery Track. I'm sorry. It's called Mastery Transcript Consortium. And this is something that actually exists mostly for high schools. It's a really fascinating new way of doing assessments for children. So they have competency-based record keeping, right? So every child has a dashboard, and here's their competency distribution and their statement and the different competencies that they're working on. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to gauge a child's progress. This is for high school. I reached out to them because I've been searching for the right tool to do this for our program, which is going to be starting elementary. And I'm excited that they said that they're going to work with me to take their tool and to adjust it and make it appropriate for elementary, so that other people can have access to it also. So, yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah, tracking of kids' work is really, an assessment is really vital.
Okay. We're going to start with Corissa. We're going to go to Shontelle, then John, and then Dr. Clark is going to bring us home.
So I just want to start with saying that your concept and the model that you showed, I think is great. One thing that we like to emphasize in the public, trying to get away from like that lecture type of teaching and actually making it more hands-on. And like you said, practice, practice, practice. Let the kids do the work, because a lot of the time we do the thinking for them. So letting the kids show us what they know. So I really, that's really what hit home for me. I would also say having the opportunities for the kids to assess, but not really assess them, because we do a lot of testing as well, to see where students are. But there are other ways, performance-based, looking at how they are performing to get a good cue of where they are, besides just sitting down, taking paper, pencil, or on the computer test. That was another thing that stood out for me. And also the real world, making that connection between real world. Oftentimes kids do things, and like you said, they're like, why am I doing this? I'm not going to need this. I'm not going in this field. So making that connection to let them know that things that they are learning, they can use those things in the real world, I think is great.
Thank you. Shontelle?
Okay, so I agree with Carissa. I love the whole connection idea. Why am I doing this? I always was in school. Why do I have to learn this? I love numbers, but really didn't use algebra at all, ever, other than when I decided to teach it. And the reflection piece for me is great, because I think kids become adults who don't reflect, which makes us struggle when it's time to jump off into that, to be courageous and be that entrepreneur or that electrician or whatever. It's time for us to step out into our real places in the world, where we're all preparing for throughout all of this time. I think that is imperative, that we learn it at younger ages and keep practicing it so that we can take it into adulthood. I did walk away with two questions though. The one question I had was, because of the reflection piece, it was very much geared toward that piece for me. How will you have your students reflect following the required assessments? Because I think that's, I know we have this whole idea of set your goals, and then we go and sit down and have conversations with students about setting their goals. But really all we're doing is looking at numbers. We're not really looking at how these skills, what skills do I have to work on in order to get to this goal. We're just looking at, on my math test, I made this, and this is the goal I want to raise it by 16 points. Okay, what about the middle pieces? All of those other pieces of how to get there. That was the one walkaway question. And then my second walkaway question, I think you kind of hit on, was what is your target age groups? Like right now, where you're targeting, if I'm not mistaken, it was like the littles. I call them the littles.
Yeah, we have a bunch of littles.
4-year-olds.
Yeah. So we're starting K through 2. So we're going to
Okay.
have 2 learning communities. The first learning community will be K through 2, 24 to 30 kids. And the second learning community, which will start next year, will be 3rd through 5th grade. Again, 24 to 30 kids, with 2 full-time teachers in each, plus an aide, an assistant teacher in each. The first question, this may not be a good answer. I don't plan on reflecting on the tests, on the formal state mandated tests. I'm not really interested in them, to be honest with you. We have a preschool now, and we do VPK, voluntary pre-kindergarten. And as a part of that, we have to assess the children, do these formal tests 3 times a year. And we do them. And then we are told that we have to print out the parent report, which we print out, and we have the parents sign it, and then we file it. I've been doing this for 7 years now. The state Any other school, any other parent, no one has ever asked me for a child's test results. Never. And I write recommendations to schools all the time. They never say to me, hey, how'd the kid do on that VPK test? So we're going to do the test that they tell us to do. And I'm not even suggesting that it's worthless. I'm sure there will be some value in it, but I don't really see value in talking with the children about how they did on it. Our reflection is not about what did they learn, but how did they learn? As you said, that teaching them how to be reflective adults, that's such a beautiful, idea. So that's, and again, I might be naive on that because we're just starting this, so I may be missing some elements that either we have to do or we should be doing. But as I sit here right now, I don't want to spend any more time on those standardized tests than I have to.
Yeah, I think my concern is I think from K-12. So I'm like, okay, but when I get ready to go to college, they're going to ask me for numbers. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's where my brain went straight there.
Right. So this mastery tracker thing that I was mentioning, they actually, one of the things that they do, because they primarily work with high schools, is they think deeply about how can they create a report type that will be accepted by universities. And I'm also thinking about schools like High Tech High, which is a very alternative type of school. They also, we don't live on an island. We have to play in the larger world, and the larger world expects X, Y, and Z. And so we have to provide that even if we don't find it as meaningful as others do.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. John?
Yeah, and I think when I hear reflection, what I think about is one, reflecting on learning experiences is a really strong way to reinforce the learning pathways that you're growing and can help move information from short-term to long-term memory. With that, if you reflect on the test, one type of reflection is, oh my, I've missed all of these particular questions, so maybe there's a competency where I'm struggling, and my reflection is, how do I develop that competency? But David, I have two questions, and I try to be brief. I'm wondering, if you're doing group-based work, how do you, or have you talked about how you'll manage when one student is significantly more advanced in that competency than maybe a younger student? And what does that look like in a practical sense?
Yeah, so the way I'm imagining it is that just like the tools that we're using and the curricula that we're using, the environment that we create has to be responsive and always shifting. So just by way of example, let's say we have John, who is a first grader in our program. So he comes in the morning, and we have our opening community time, and okay, great break, time for base camp. John, who's working on first grade math, he may go grab the iPad. This will all be scheduled with him. He will create his schedule with the teacher for the next day. But he will go grab his iPad and he'll start working on Khan Academy Kids for 20 minutes. And because Khan Academy Kids knows where he left off, knows what his skills are, knows what he needs to work on, it's going to provide him with the right exercises, the right activities. After that, his next task up is maybe he's going to go sit with one of the teachers who's meeting with a group of 3 first graders and 2 kindergartners, because those kindergartners are pretty advanced, and they're going to work on a specific math skill that they are all working on in that moment. After that, he may decide that he wants to go get a snack, because for the life of me, I cannot understand why we tell children when snack time is. They should be able to just get a snack when they get hungry, for goodness sakes. He'll go grab a snack. After that, maybe he goes and sits with 3 second graders and 3 first graders, and they have a reading circle, and they go over, they grab some pillows, sit under a tree, and they have a reading circle for about 15-20 minutes. And then maybe he does some 2-on-1 with one of the teachers, because there's a particular reading comprehension or spelling skill that he's been working on. So the teachers are constantly moving, the kids are constantly moving. We sort of block the time so that on any given day, children have time on device, whether that's a Chromebook or an iPad or whatever, with one of those responsive apps. They have time with other children learning, and they have time with a teacher or instructor learning as well.
Okay, so it's the group work is maybe not the part where you would worry about that competency as much as you can fill that in the gaps on the individual work, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean,
Got it.
when you, so there's, I guess, two types of group work. One group work is in the morning during that base camp time, and the groups there are grouped based on the skills that they are
Okay.
working on. In the afternoon, I think you're absolutely right. That's when we're asking the kids to put those skills to work, but we're not necessarily fine-tuning those skills.
Yeah, interesting. And then my other question, and if just like one brief sentence or two, like why, and why
Yeah,
now? It's
yeah,
really cool, but I'm just curious what made it right for you right now to do.
yeah. Uh, um, may I offer two sentences? One is because I'm exhausted by how, forgive me for saying this, I'm exhausted by how terrible the system is. I'm just, it's so broken. It's so broken. We are killing creativity. We're just draining our children of any joy in learning. And I want to do my little part to give that back. And the second reason, which is much more practical, is at least in Miami, since October 7th of 2023, there's been a run on Jewish day schools. There's been a real, almost an exponential run on Jewish day schools. There's a real need for Jewish students to have a place to learn that feels safe to them, even though the other schools are safe, of course. But there's this sense that we're under attack, whatever. And so this is an opportunity that was an unfortunate opportunity that was presented to us on a practical level.
I'm wondering, do you foresee this possibly being a school system or program that might be replicated and seen it placed in other places?
Well, we are not the first to do this. I mean, there are thousands of schools around the country that do this already. We're putting our own spin on it. It's brand new to us, but it's not new to lots of folks. We are working with a coach. There's a program called What School Could Be. It's based out of Hawaii. It's a consortium, a community of people who I think like many of us and want to do things differently. And we have a coach from there that I've been working with named Robert Landau, who has done this. He's started schools all over the world, just like this. And unless I'm reading him wrong, I think that he thinks that this could be the beginning of a system. Some of the things that we're creating, I think he's thinking very broadly that we could share this with others. I would love that, but for right now, I have 24 kids that I want to give a better education to.
Thank you. Dr. Clark?
Well, it's almost all been said. We're giving the Courage Award, the Chutzpah Award to
The
David.
Chutzpah Award.
I think you should institutionalize that. It takes courage to do what you're doing, to embark on this. I can claim to be an expert on planning. I spent most of my academic career doing research on teacher planning and learned a lot from teachers about plans and planning. And one of the things I learned is it's extremely important to plan, as you are engaged in right now. You're envisioning what this is going to be like, and you're solving practical issues and philosophical issues as well. You're coming to an agreement with perhaps a group of adults who are of like mind and have some kind of decision-making power or community clarity about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And that's vitally important. But then it's important to depart from the plan when the kids actually show up, because they're not in on the plan. And even if they were in on the plan today, they'd be different people 6 months from now. So it's really important to not fall in love with plan A, because plan A isn't going to work. It's mostly for the benefit of the planners to allay your anxiety about what the heck are we going to do about this persisting problem of practice. So plan, but then hold it lightly and think about the first 3 or 4 years as a continuing planning process where you're learning from the experience of actually trying to do these things and discovering that, well, you have to make accommodations, you have to make changes. This really isn't working for the benefit of some or all of the students or the teachers for that matter. It's got to work for everybody, right? In the learning community. And teachers or the adults are learners too, right? I mean, that's part of your philosophy that everybody is learning. Um, and and so think about this as a 4 or 5 year planning process where you're climbing the mountain together. And the mountain is, what shall our school be like? And that may have to continue to change over the years because different adults and different children will show up, and children will become different, and perhaps adults will become different as they interact with one another in this adventuresome way. So that's one point.
Can I just, Doctor, I just want to say how important what you just said is that for the children, I'm a planner. I made the website, I made the logo, I have this, I have that. That's all for me. That's all for me. And this program needs to be for the children. And so once they get in there, I hope that they destroy everything that I've created. I hope that they make it their own. That's such an important piece of this.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
A second point is early in your overview, you said that failure is great because we learn how to get up again and we learn from experience how to do better next time. That sounds like Silicon Valley talk, startup talk, fail forward, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't land well with ordinary parents or kids for that matter. Failure is not fun. Failure is not, or it has baggage, let's put it that way. I would suggest another way to make the same point is to say what we do in our school is called successive approximations. We're getting better at climbing the mountain. We're going to climb a smaller hill. We're going to learn some techniques for balancing and foot placement and the right kind of footwear. We're going to learn not to wear flip-flops when you're trying to climb a mountain. So the first approximation was not an unalloyed success, but we learned some things from it. And then I would much rather have a curriculum or a series of experiences that involve doing more or less the same thing multiple times than doing lots of things one time. That's how you get better. That's how you get better in the real world, so to speak, outside school. You don't just listen to the lecture and get an A or a C, and then you move on to something else. That's part of the problem with traditional education as it is. We rarely get a chance to edit what we've written. We write a little short story. The first draft isn't that good. We have to learn how to do multiple drafts and incorporate feedback from a more experienced other or a peer, and then try again and try again. So I think successive approximations is a much more affirmative piece of language for everybody involved, but I think especially the parents are not pleased with the idea that failure is a good thing. Learning from experience is a great thing, but the failure word is not an attractive word in my experience as a parent. Anyway.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
Yeah.
I hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you all for sharing. We are actually running out of time, so we're going to pick up the pace a little bit. Next question is there an AI that you would recommend to parents and students? And we're going to start with Dr. Clark.
I would recommend the first AI that you try. Don't go shopping for the best AI. Grab one. It doesn't matter which one. I started playing with Chat GPT pretty recently. And I found it to be fun. I found myself to be smarter than it for the tasks that I gave it, except for some tasks in which it was smarter than I was. But it's all about taking the risk of trying something to see how it'll work. It reminds me of the days when microcomputers were a new thing in schools, and many people were afraid to touch it because they might break it. Well, you're not going to break these artificial intelligence programs. You're just going to type in a question, and you'll get a quick response that will be partially correct, but very fast. And that will lead you to revise your question. And John is an expert on this, or is quite experienced at doing demonstrations of refining the prompts and refining the questions till you get a response that's useful to you and checks out with your truth detector.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. David?
Dave, or do you want, oh, me? Okay. I'll give you two. One is Conmigo. Conmigo is Khan Academy's AI. It's their AI tutor. It's part of Khan Academy, but you can also actually just get it in ChatGPT. So I know this is small for you all to see, but so I put in a problem. I said, I can't figure out the answer to this problem. What's the square root of 63? And instead of answering the question, Conmigo will never answer the question. It will help you figure it out on your own. So it says, let's think this through together. Can 63 be broken down into smaller factors that are perfect squares? This will help us simplify the square root. What factors of 63 do you know? So then I can say, I don't know any. And then it's going to, no worries, let's find some factors together. And then it shows me how to find the factors. So this is fantastic. It does not give your child the answer, but it will help them work through the problem. That's one. The other is one that I just discovered. It's called rabbithole.chat. I'm a little obsessed with this one. So I put in here, teach my 4th grade child about space. So now it's going to go off and create a, like a ChatGPT kind of answer about this. But then I can go down the rabbit hole. So I can say, it offers me some options. What are some interesting missions that have explored other planets? Can you explain how astronauts prepare for space travel? I can click that, and it's going to give me something on that, which is born out of this. I can also ask my own questions. So let's go back up here, and I'll say, let's see, where do I get to ask my own question? Wait, oh, ask a follow-up. There it is, sorry. I want to ask a follow-up. Where do I ask a follow-up? It's here somewhere. I just can't see it. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. So now I can say, how many times have we gone to space? And it's, I love how it kind of each question builds off of the ones before it. It really lets you go down a rabbit hole and explore something in depth. So Conmigo and rabbithole.chat are my two favorites.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Shontelle?
Okay. So I'm kind of like Chris on this one, just whichever one's most user-friendly for your purpose. It just depends on what my purpose is. If I'm a college student, I may choose one AI, but as a teacher, I choose a different AI. And if I'm writing for students, I choose a different AI. So it just depends on the purpose. Just choose whichever one works for you. I do like I'm going to play with the Conmigo one, though I didn't know it was one out there for math. I kind of like that one, especially for students to kind of answer their own questions and give them a resource that they can play with or deal with on their own versus needing someone to be there to give them the information.
And then I want to ask David, are those both work on iPads?
That's a very good question. I haven't tried. That's actually an excellent question, because you have to work with the devices that kids have available to them. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
And that's
John?
their cost. I'm sorry, I just had a question. Is
Yeah.
there a cost
Yeah.
attached to those?
Conmigo is free. The other one, Rabbit Hole, you can do for free, or you can do $5 a month for unlimited searches. I paid the $5 for this 1 month just to see if I liked it, and if I don't, I'll, $5 down the hole. It's okay.
Okay. John?
I will also agree that it doesn't really matter which tool you use, and different tools will be better for different jobs. Two fun things to do with AI that relate to learning is if you have one that has an advanced voice mode, like ChatGPT has an advanced voice mode, give it instructions on a scenario that you want to practice and then ask for feedback. And so I actually created some scenarios for customer service training saying, pretend like you're a customer in this situation. Let's have a conversation back and forth. When I'm done, tell me where I can get better. Specifically focus on my skills for conflict resolution, de-escalating callers, and using these particular types of phrases. You have a conversation and it evaluates you. The other thing is build your own chat GPT. Lots of different tools can do this as well. Create your own GPT that you upload resources and it helps you do a very specific task. I uploaded a bunch of tools for a specific instructional design technique I like to use. And so now I have a customized chatbot where I can just quickly brainstorm new ideas for instruction.
Okay. Do you have a program that is the foundation for creating the chat GPTs?
Both of those I use ChatGPT. I have the $20 a month subscription, and so one's called using advanced voice mode, the other's using creating custom GPTs. But like Claude and all the others have the same capability, I believe, not unless you're on the voice tools.
Okay. Carissa?
So the AI programs or programs that I have been using recently with like as far as education, we've been using Microsoft Copilot that has been promoted really big within Fulton County. We use it and we are training teachers on, how to use it, how it could help assist with lesson planning or other different tasks. I have a presentation coming up, I think next week or in 2 weeks on AI. So though I use AI as ways, of helping and showing ways to use Copilot that could be used in a classroom. And because I am assessment, it was geared more to how they could use it for assessment. But that is a big one that's been promoted for Fulton County. They've actually kind of banned some of the other ones from our use when we were at school. So educational wise, that's the one I've been using. Personal, I tend to go to ChatGPT.
Okay. Did I get everybody? I just want to make sure. I got it. Okay, good. Rabbi David, I have a question for you. This is a little bit off, but it's educated related. It's personal education related. So I spoke last Sunday, and I was speaking from Isaiah 53, and I looked at the text in ChatGPT in Hebrew, and I was wondering what your thoughts were. Because I don't know Hebrew, I don't know how accurate it was, but I glean a lot of meaningful information from it. But I was just wondering, do you have a recommendation other than ChatGPT that I might need, that I might be able to use for trying to get a handle on some of the Hebrew? Right.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not ChatGPT. Um, I mean, for all I know, it was making up Hebrew letters. It still does that sometimes. I would go to a website called Sefaria, Sefaria.org. Sefaria is actually, it's a really interesting educational thing that came about. So this is long before the pandemic. But we Jews, we like to study. We have lots of books, but it's really expensive and inaccessible because a lot of them are in Hebrew or in Aramaic. What Sefaria did is they started taking like every Jewish text you can imagine, literally everything. It's unbelievable. Digitizing it, putting it online, making it searchable, and then linking all the texts together. Like what was that called back in the day when you click hyperlinks, right? Like hyperlinks everywhere. So again, I apologize. I know the screen is small, but so I pulled up Isaiah 53 right here. So this is Isaiah 53 in what do you call it? In Sefaria. And now if I click on this verse, I can do a whole bunch of stuff. I'll just double click on this word. It's going to bring up right here a dictionary for me. It tells me exactly what that Hebrew word means. And it's giving me actually multiple dictionary sources here. If I click on the verse itself, it gives me all the different commentaries about this verse in English or in Hebrew. So this is a really fantastic resource if you are looking for Hebrew texts for Hebrew sources for something that you're looking up or studying. I would look at Sefaria, SEFARIA.org, and I do not get a kickback from them. So, and it's free, and it's lovely.
Thank you. We were actually out of time, but I want to go ahead and get this last question in because I think it's important. You're speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know? We're going to start with Dr. Clark.
I pass for the moment. Come back to me.
Okay, Corissa.
Is this pertaining to just what we've talked about tonight or just in general?
In general.
I would say in general and a little bit about what we talked about tonight. I think in education, it is important that we have communication. I think that is lacking with the teachers, from teacher to teacher, administrators to teachers, parents to teacher, all the way around communication so that we are all on one page to help ensure that our students are getting what they need.
Thank you. Shontelle?
Okay. I think my statement would be one, reflection is necessary, and two, every child can learn, just depends on how they learn.
Thank you. All right. David? You're muted.
I apologize. Really simple. We can do better. Let's do better.
Thank you. John?
Life's short. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Dr. Clark?
Thank you for that, John. There's an old folk song that is entitled, "The World is Always Turning Toward the Morning." And I think that's a sentiment that is useful, especially in uncertain times. And we're truly in uncertain times with regard to public education. So just remind ourselves that the world is always turning toward the morning.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all so much for being with me today. Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by Value Audio Visual Professionals who meet daily in Office Hours Global, hosted by Alex Lindsay. Thank you, Mimo Live, for Conversations with Tony Mobley production. We have conversations with real people. Stay tuned for new and great episodes on Conversations with Tony Mobley. We want to thank everyone for the 100 plus episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley. If you have time, we ask that you look back at some of those conversations, and we think that something you might like and hopefully is helpful to you. We want to say thank you to the panel for being here today, for being part of our conversation, for doing the work you do, and for being the people that you are. Next week, we're going to have Dr. Hazmak Gaijar, who is a medical doctor, who is a video production producer, who is also doing education and training for other doctors virtually. And he is going to be coming to us from Cape Town, South Africa, in the wee hours of the morning to be on Conversation with Tony Mobley next week. And so if you have time, we ask that you come and join us. And we want to say thank you again for everyone for being on the panel today. And if you have time, we ask that you like, subscribe, and feel free to, again, like. And we hope to get some of the links that were shared today on our website for you. And last bit of, I didn't ask you about this, Rabbi David Paskin, but is there an opportunity for people to donate to the school?
That's very sweet. No, find a charity in your. Find a charity. Am I muted?
No, you're not muted. We can hear
Oh,
you.
that's weird. My Zoom just froze. Interesting. Find a charity that you care about. Give there. We're doing just fine. Thank you, though.
Okay. All right. We want to say good evening, good day, good afternoon, wherever time it is, where you are in the world. Take care. God bless. See you soon.